Today's episode is brought to you by Mazars.
SoundCartel.
Well, it's been 18 months now since we were first battered by COVID-19, and it just keeps keeping on. As half the country faces lockdown, the question is, when will it end? And what does it mean for the economy moving forward? From SoundCartel, I'm Nicole Goodman, and this is Business Essentials Daily. If ever a crystal ball is needed, it's right now. But of course, we don't have one. Instead, we turn to our reliable and trusted Professor of Economics, Neville Norman of Melbourne University, and his outlook for the rest of this year and beyond. His message? Don't be too despondent. Pay attention and be prepared. He offers realistic virus scenarios to equip you with planning your business. But first, where are we now? Nick Schilberger asks Neville if he could step right in and give us his Spring 2021 assessment for business and the economy.
Well, spring indeed, Nick. I'd love to have a magic wand to make this virus and everything that came with it disappear as just a bad dream. But the reality is that while none of us saw this in early 2020, and this time last year, few people thought it would still be with us. Well, most of Australia's economy is still in lockdown at later 2021. Behind that, we find incomplete provision of the take-up of the vaccines, jumbled virus rules, selfish or ignorant non-compliance with mask and distancing rules, and huge diversity between states, age groups, industry groups, and our economists doing the forecasting. Where next sounds pretty negative, but I've got some very, very rosy news to come. First, my persistent message is we all have to use realistic virus scenarios before anyone can make responsible economic or business scenarios, including your own budgets. And the biggest culprit of all is called the Federal Australian Government, whose May 2021 budget not that long ago, and all its numbers were based on just one view of the future, the extreme scenario one, as I call it. They say no more lockdowns or shut borders. Assumptions already smashed right through our winter. My scenarios type 2 have been before you since March last year. They are continuing virus and restrictions, subsiding when the vaccine, summer temperatures and better human behaviour kick in. Number 3 was always persisting restrictions up to a year ahead. Let's hope not. My unchanged urging for you is to locate your business on a virus susceptibility scale and do your own budgets for all 3 of these scenarios. But perhaps now, Nick, just make that 2. The government scenario has been brutally blitzed by all these recent lockdowns.
Yes, they certainly have, which is not much fun for anybody. But how does your approach compare to other economists and business advisors?
Quite bluntly, Nick, I've never seen any other published virus scenarios before economic forecasts, except what you get right here in BE. I know that some exist privately, but looking at the scope forecasts published on the 7th of August this year for all to see, mine are for a slump in later 2021, then stronger growth and a resurgent inflation in 2022 as labour shortages and blunted immigration causes wage rises, the Reserve Bank raising rates in early 2022, years ahead of its so-called promise. Some agree with some of that, but only 2 other forecasters agree with me on rate rises in 2022. The PAC, 19 of 22 economists has published, can't see any rate rises until 2023 or later. Let's ask this. What specific virus forecasts did the PAC make and build into their own economic forecasts? I can't tell you because there's zilch published about this most important backdrop factor. But mine are all published in Business Essentials and the Mazars websites as they've been for over a year. In the press, my interest rate forecasts were called, quote, most aggressive of all and implicitly maverick. But ask this, are the PAC just glued to the Reserve Bank promise? I just don't like predicting rate rises, but it's what my research finds and my research ethics code compels me to report. The virus scenarios I've painted as most likely, number 2, split itself into 2, with 2A, The Reserve Bank responds in early 2022 to stronger economic conditions and rising US interest rates by lifting our rates gently, cooling but not killing shares and properties. Under scenario 2B, or let's hope not to be, the bank clings to its no rate rises until 2024 promise for a while, then wakes up, surges rates, clubbing shares and property, borrowers and inflicting damage. Let's hope that does not happen.
No, we certainly don't want that. So if we do get scenario 2A, Neville, what does that mean for business?
Well, Nick, it means despite the rate rise and dashed hopes for people who've been holding off buying shares and properties, scenario 2A is a terrific outcome for 2022 for almost everyone in business. Before that, expect, I think, one more negative GDP result reported before the brighter signs come. Now, much work goes into getting all these numbers, and I have to look at a whole big bunch of percentages of time under lockdown, business affected, share of the country, like 75% as I record this in August, and economy covered, jobs lost, all with less government support. The negative growth, if it is the case in September quarter, you won't hear until December. Much less chance of a second one, I think, and thus of recession. Two big tips. Do forecast the virus yourself before you try to forecast the economy, and most notably, your own business numbers. Secondly, make sure you do hold out to later 2021 and into 2022, when summer conditions and fuller vaccination get what we hoped for more than a year ago, the end of virus policy damaging economic and business conditions. Then hope that our Reserve Bank goes 2A, not 2B. We want A for all go, not rate surgering, B for butchering.
So just on the vaccinations, Neville, you say economics can help to discover the best way to accelerate vaccines, which we know is so important to get us beyond lockdowns.
Indeed, we've got a super framework running from doing nothing to absolute compulsion. And if you do want to get soon to the UK style of almost total vaccination, you can have either A, mandated compulsion that people just hate, B, cash payments that don't come to the majority who've already had the jab, so unfair, or C, vaccine passports to gain entry into anything significant. Guess what makes most sense? I can only tell you free choice isn't working fast enough. It is a race, Prime Minister, as every gutted business will tell you.
And finally, Neville, you've often criticised the absurd precision of using decimal places in estimating budget deficits, even years ahead. But I understand you have a countering estimate of when we might now return to budget surplus. As we need a lighter touch in these testing times, I can't wait to hear it.
Indeed, Nick. We got asked that question, and for some curious reason, the Scope people didn't publish mine. I've agonised over this, and our federal budget will get back into surplus, wait for this, on the 1st of April 2039, around about 11:30am. Now, I hope you take that in the light way that it's taken. A lot of things happen on April 1, but everything else I've said is deadly serious. But look, please don't put undue precision to questions like that, particularly differences like deficits and indeed your own profits and loss. But please seriously look at the virus, build in the assumptions, and my advice is not much virus in 2022, and that's going to give the end of the restrictions, and let's hope we control the boom. That's my message.
That was Melbourne University Professor of Economics, Neville Norman. This episode of Business Essentials Daily is produced by the team at SoundCartel. Thanks for listening. I'm Nicole Goodman. We'll bring you more Be Daily tomorrow. Follow at BE Daily Podcast across social media and head to bedaily.com.au for more from the Business Essentials Daily podcast. SoundCartel. This episode was brought to you by Mazars. To find out more, visit mazars.com.au. That's mazars.com.au.